One. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest in the ValuesJam guest session series. And Anne, brilliant to have you here with us. And to kick off, please introduce yourself and tell everybody about you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Smith. I'm over in the US in Pennsylvania. Um, what do you want to know about me? I'm married to Kevin, and I have a wonderful little dog, Bella. Um, my career background was in healthcare for 30 years. I'm retired now, and I do a lot of community, volunteer, church activity work, and I help take care of my mother. So keeps me very busy.
Thanks, Anne. And I'm curious a little to know a little bit more about that career. So 30 years, where did that take you, and where did you step out from when you left?
So I worked for the local hospital system, and
Okay.
I went to college for health information management. So I spent half of that 30 years in our health information management department, maintaining records, working on coding and billing with insurances and things like that. I wasn't clinical. And then from there, I went over to more of the finance side. So I read a lot of regulations and just worked on revenue cycle finance stuff. I was starting to burn out. So I kind of knew, I remember in school when I was in college, our professors would say, you know, it's time to move on when you keep telling everybody this is how we used to do it. So I got to that point. So I talked to my husband, and he's like, just quit, go find something else to do that makes you happy and you're more passionate about. So that's what I did. So my goal was to do, I mean, I loved what I did, but I was just very burnout from the paper and regulatory process. And I wanted to do something more people focused. Like I wanted to make a difference in people's lives as opposed to helping the system manage all the healthcare regulatory billing stuff. So,
It's
and literally a week after I quit working, my go ahead.
no. A week after you quit, yeah.
Oh, a week after I quit working, my father-in-law was in a work-related accident and he was in the hospital for 2 weeks and he rehabbed for 12 and I was there to help him. So it was exactly what I was looking to do. So,
Gosh.
and yeah, so God gives you what you ask for sometimes, I guess, in the most unusual ways.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those stories, I guess, isn't it? And let's see whether we're going to have a relevant card. Sometimes it's a
Oh.
surprise, and sometimes you think, well, that was meant to be. So I've taken the cards out of the deck, and I'm just going to shuffle them. And so just have a think about how many piles of cards I should put in front of me, Anne.
Mm, let's do four.
Let's do four, okay? And they're different sizes. And so now I've got pile one on my left and pile four on my right. So would you like one, two, three, or four?
Well, let's do two.
Okay,
Two.
thank you. And so now I've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 cards in this pile. So a number between those two.
Oh, let's do 10.
10. So I'm going to count from the back 15, 14, 13, 12, 11.
Don't keep me in suspense.
You choose them.
Ah, enjoyment. Excellent.
Enjoyment. So and this is one of my personal core values. So thank you for that. Enjoyment's something I really enjoy. Sorry for the pun. And the first question is, what does enjoyment mean? And then there's a follow-up to kind of give us a little bit of creative thinking, which is, what does it look, feel, and sound like? So first one, technically, enjoyment, what is it? And then that metaphor question. What do you think?
Wow. Enjoyment. Well, that should be fairly easy to talk about. Um, I feel like enjoyment is when you're doing something that makes you happy or you feel fulfilled. Um, it's easy, perhaps. Um, you're with people that you want to be with. You're doing something you want to do.
Hmm.
Um, Trying to think. It's something you enjoy. Uh, I enjoy gardening, so that's a an example I give often. Is I enjoy playing in the dirt.
Yeah, it's I love those sorts of things as well. In fact, anything that is very simple and kind of menial, anybody can do it kind of thing. And gardening in
Mhm.
particular, isn't it? I don't know whether you get the same thing, but for instance, if I'm just looking out now at the various parts of the garden here, and I'll say, okay, well, I'm just gonna take the weeds out of this area. And then when you've done it, you look back at it and you're like, that looks pretty good. But the key, a guy that
Yeah.
I used to know that does gardening for a living, he said the secret to enjoying gardening is remembering that you will never win.
Very true. Very true. Yes,
So,
I said I just like playing in the dirt and I like to the process of watching things grow and the beauty of all the color. And it just brings me a sense of accomplishment when they actually grow and they don't die on me. Um, yeah,
so, what do you think, Anne, about this? So I'm thinking now that what we're talking about here is enjoyment of something that is super, super simple, right? It's there, and you mentioned color and growing and then digging in the dirt and stuff like that. We live in a society where sometimes it feels to me that people unnecessarily complicate things, and it feels like sometimes to enjoy themselves, people have to, I don't know, go on some sort of fancy trip or go somewhere a long way away or something like that. Um, Is there any what have you got there about this ability to enjoy just the most simple things?
absolutely. When I was younger, I used to have a long bucket list of things I wanted to do and places to go, the grandiose stuff, the big stuff. And I don't know, maybe it's in my older years and I'm just getting more settled in the simplicity of life and actually the peace, just having peace around me because we live in such a chaotic world and just a noisy world. So a lot of times for me, enjoyment is sitting on my deck reading a book and listening to the birds chirping and looking at my flowers, or having a cup of coffee with a friend and having deep, deeper conversations than just superficial, things about the world, like getting more vulnerable and authentic with a friend and just talking about some deeper issues just brings me a lot of enjoyment. I enjoy those conversations much more than being at a party and having to socialize and make small talk. That's not enjoying for me.
So is there something then about enjoyment in the context that we're talking about? Um, Enjoyment being something that you use the word deeper rather than this kind of superficial surface level kind of thing when you're in a hurry. Is it, it's there's
I
something
think it's
that I think there's a bit of a lag here, isn't there? So I'm sorry. I was waiting.
there is.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
I was waiting for you to respond. So you go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, I love doing like crazy fun things too, but at the same time, like um I just really enjoy simple things like going for walks or I mean, I love the big trips and everything too, or vacations and doing silly, you know, ca spontaneous things too. But in general life, day to day, like my enjoyment is in the very small things, the very simple things, and maybe I just get stressed out with the chaos and noise of the world. So for me, enjoyment is when I can strip a lot of that away.
Okay. And then what about so the metaphor part of the question was around when you think of the word enjoyment, what image comes to mind? What feelings come to mind? And what sounds come to mind?
Hmm. Um, Sounds would be nature. Um, Music. I love to listen to music. Feelings would be just like contentment. There's a sense of contentment and happiness about being in that present moment.
Hmm. And then any image?
An image. I think it would have to probably be some sort of nature, whether it's sitting on the dock of a lake or walking along the beach. I just enjoy nature tremendously, and that gives me a lot of peace and enjoyment just to sometimes the solitude is nice. It makes me sound like I don't like to be around people, but I do. Um, but it's just I feel a big sense of peace and contentment when I'm in those that scenery.
Okay. We share that as well, you know. So um, the image that comes to mind for me around enjoyment is a smile. And whether that's kind of a slight,
Mm.
quiet smile, or whether it's a more, I'm really enjoying this smile, it can be on that spectrum. But you talking about nature reminded me, we were talking before we started to record about holidays and Greece. And last year, I went to a Greek island called Ithaca, and I remember driving around this windy road. And as you came round the road, you just had this wonderful view down onto the coast and the sea. And I just remember, I can see it now. I just remember smiling in the car and
Hmm.
just like, this is so cool to be here. Um, then for feelings, I heard you say contentment. And I thought, yeah, that's right. But then there are other times that I associate enjoyment with excitement. So again, it's that spectrum of enjoyment can actually be soft and quiet, or it can be more kind of, jump up and down kind of thing. And then sound, I'm with you again. So music, I love listening to music, and I'm not doing it as often as I think I maybe should be doing, but I've started to listen to a whole album from beginning to end rather than just, the Spotify kind of churn of stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
and nature. And I remember during COVID, going on a walk and hearing a robin singing and just stopping and listening. And I just thought, why have I not done this before? And ever since COVID, I now, when I hear a bird, I'll stop and listen because it's such a fantastic sound.
Hmm. I have to go back to what you were saying about smiles because you have a beautiful smile. And I can't help think about when we celebrated your birthday in a very um, fun way when we were in Italy last year, and the whole restaurant was singing to you, and just the pure enjoyment of that moment spontaneously happening. And that's a very fond memory for me. And that's a beautiful example of an unexpected enjoyment amongst a normally like a wonderful dinner, but then just that little added extra at the end was wonderful.
Yeah, it was, and
Um,
it was amazing to be part of that. The sound of everybody singing, that'll last with me forever. Um, and actually, there's a funny story to that as well because, as you know, it was coming up to my birthday, And my partner and I then went on to another place on the island, and we went out on my birthday for dinner. And so after the main course, unbeknownst to me, it was planned to bring a little cake thing with a candle, and Louisa started to sing "Happy Birthday to You," and nobody joined in. And she
Oh,
struggled all the way through to the end and kept it up. But and then I think back to what happened in the first restaurant. So I think those two experiences are a real lesson in life of how
yeah.
different things can be.
Well, and it's really hard to sing happy birthday by yourself, I think. But thankfully we had help with the first one.
Yeah,
The other
lots.
thing I was going to say too is I love your example of smiling as an element of enjoyment because I've been trying to be more aware of my surroundings and just take in where the environment where I'm at. And sometimes you can catch the most beautiful witness of something else beautiful happening between a mother and a little kid, or or the innocence of a child, and it just brings me I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful. And that's just a little nugget of enjoyment versus like the big enjoyments. I think there's just all different levels of planned enjoyment as well as the spontaneous things that happen in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, and again, is this an extension of the gardening thing? Because it's an appreciation of those things that some people don't notice, perhaps. So, for instance, when we were away recently, there was an elderly couple on the beach. They must have been in their 80s, and it was a very sunny, warm day, and the two of them, I don't know why, but I'm getting a bit emotional here. The two of them got up, they held hands, walked into the sea, and the guy kissed his wife.
Oh,
And yeah, and it's
yeah.
just like, and I'm sure there are some people that were too busy with whatever they were doing to notice something like that. And yet it was a very beautiful moment. So yeah, this thing about there's a friend of mine called Jessica. Jessica, I can't remember your surname, but she talks about slowing down and instead of, just charging through life and maybe missing so much to actually pay attention, like you were saying, pay attention to your environment, what's around you, and just like we've described with either a mother and a child or that couple at the other end of their life, it's kind of you can witness magical things. Now let's go. We've kind of jumped into enjoyment and we've gone to a lovely place actually that we've just started to explore. I'm going to provide some balance now, and we're going to go to the other side of the coin. And I've got a question which is, where have you noticed a lack of enjoyment?
Hmm. I don't know if this is a lack of enjoyment, but I was gonna comment too on like when we are in the throes of an activity or a vacation or something that you're just really enjoying yourself, but you stop to take a million pictures. And like I've been trying to do a better job of just be present and remember it for myself. I don't need to share it with the rest of the world, but I feel like the enjoyment would probably be elevated if we were more present in those activities or those moments. You know, I know for me, like we've been on many trips where I wanted to be in the moment, but I felt like I'm never going to get back here. I have to take a million pictures so I can remember. But I also feel like at the same time, what I'm supposed to remember will stay in my head.
Yeah, so true, so true. And I don't know if you know this, but I enjoy photography. And
Mm.
so one thing I really enjoy is, and often being on my own with my camera somewhere beautiful and taking photographs. Um, but I was bought a gift of a It was an owl day. So basically, these people had bought a small wooded area, and then they had these owls, and they allowed the owls to fly around, and then you take photographs of them, right? So there was this. It was a snow. I don't know if it was a snowy white owl or something like that. But anyway, I had my camera. I had practiced getting the shutter speed right and everything else. And then as I was taking some photos, something just told me, what are you doing? Just drop your camera and just enjoy this beautiful bird gliding through all of these boughs and branches, looking as though it's taking no effort at all and making no sound. And it was just amazing. And of course, I didn't get the photograph, so I haven't got that to show anybody. But I remember the
Hmm.
mental video of it. So I'm just
Right.
reinforcing what you said, right?
Yeah. I think too, I know for myself and Kevin, we have like people say, how's things going? Like things are great. We're super busy, but it's all good stuff. But then sometimes I have to pause and like, we're just doing so much and it's fun and it's great, but at the same time it's exhausting. And like, do you miss those elements of enjoyment because you're just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, even though they're all good? Like your social calendar can be super busy and they're all enjoyable, but at some time you're going to crash and burn. And then for me, if it was a little bit slower pace, I probably would have enjoyed it more deeply, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense. And you're reminding me of a quote that I was looking at just, I think it was last week, and it was about music and how the beauty of the music is in the spaces between the notes, which I think
Mm.
which I think plays to what you're talking about here. Because, a note, no matter how beautiful it is, if it was just repeated with no gap before the next one and the next one, the next one, the next one, it wouldn't it kind of would be missing an awful lot. Whereas you listen to some pieces of music, and so I'm thinking, for instance, of a track Exodus by Bob Marley and the Wailers. In the introduction, before there's this very deep bass beat that comes in, and you know that it's coming, but it's the space before it arrives that is actually the beauty of it, and then it comes, and you do enjoy that as well. So I think there's a lot in what you say
Yes.
about the not filling up too much.
Yeah. And I think too, sometimes the anticipation of an activity or event or a vacation, anticipating it adds to that enjoyment when you finally get there because you're not just enjoying it when you're there or in the moment, but like you're looking forward to it and you're thinking about it and you're um, like getting excited for it. I know my aunt, she lives in another like a couple. It's a day trip to get there. But I said to her one time years ago, I said, "What if I would just fly and pop in and be at your doorstep?" And she's like, "Well, that would certainly be wonderful, but I would like to know when you're coming ahead of time so I can anticipate the enjoyment that we're going to have." So I thought that was an interesting perspective because I thought I was gonna like surprise her and it'll be great. And she's like, "That'll be wonderful, but knowing that you're coming and I have 2 weeks to anticipate and get excited was more important to her than the surprise."
Yeah. You're making me think of childhood Christmas.
Mm.
The run up to Christmas Day, full of anticipation. Um, Yeah, and then you kind of put me a little bit off balance, because when you said about surprising your aunt, what popped into my head when I was at university, one year I just went home for my mum's birthday without telling her. And instead of, we had the front door to the house and the back door to the house that everybody used. But I remember ringing the doorbell because I wanted her to come to the door, wondering who is this, and then hi. But like you say, maybe it would have been better if I had let her know.
Was she surprised and excited to see you?
Yeah, of course. Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
Yeah. 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 I think it also helps to like I learned something about my aunt that she likes the surprises, but she likes the anticipation instead of a surprise maybe a little bit more, and to be more aware of what drives people or um, what I'm not grasping for words here. I don't like surprises personally, but I've been surprised in the past and it's fun.
Yeah, so I think, are you talking about this empathy so that you're putting yourself in the other person's shoes and doing what gives them enjoyment rather than what you think will and maybe is more about what would give you enjoyment?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Now, in ValuesJam, there's the opportunity to create your own question about enjoyment. So let's have a go at that now. And so the way that it works is you think of something that you're curious about enjoyment, and ask the question beginning with who, what, where, when, why, or how. And then either if you've got the answer already, you can share your answer first, or you can ask me the question and I'll answer and then you can respond. So, what's your question?
What do I start it with? Who, what, where, when, or why, or how?
Yeah. So, anything that you're curious about, want to know about enjoyment.
Um, why is enjoyment so important to you? And do you feel that there are times when you struggle to find that enjoyment?
Ooh, okay. Um, I think it might be something to do with coming from a pretty humble background and having to work hard a lot of the time and not having much time or resources to have enjoyment other than, for instance, playing soccer or football or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think also a driver will be when I moved into my career, my professional life, I was conscious of the environment around me that everybody was striving to climb the ladder and wasn't really having a good time doing it. It was all
Mm-hmm.
very serious stuff. Um, and I think there's more to life than that. And uh, I who was it? One of the famous philosophers talked about eudaimonia and said that the reason we're on this earth is to be happy and content. That's our reason for being. And I think there's so much truth in that because you talked
Mm-hmm.
right at the beginning of the conversation about reaching a stage where you were feeling like being burnt out. How many times do we hear people say, I'm going to strive and struggle and get to wherever I want to get to, earning however much I want to earn. And then you ask them, and what are you going to do then? And they say, well, then I'll be able to relax and enjoy life. And it's like, well, why didn't you spend the 30 or 40 years enjoying life along the way? So
Exactly.
that was a bit of a long-winded answer to your question, but to boil it down, I think one, because I didn't have a lot of opportunity for enjoyment when I was younger, and then two, in the professional world, I think people often allow enjoyment to pass them by, and three, because that's why we're here to live a life of fulfillment. What about you?
Same question? Back?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what, and maybe broaden it if you want to. So, Um, how important is enjoyment to you, and how do you go about that?
Yeah, I obviously enjoyment is very important. I think we all, I like everybody else get stuck in the achievement, accomplishment role that society places on us or that we put on ourselves to. I call it for me my Cinderella complex. I have to do all my chores before I go to the ball and have fun. And that's something that I've struggled with since my college days. Like, get the studying done, then you can go out and have a beer. Or when I was first working, it's like, I got to get out all the housework done and get my job done. And then I can go out and have fun or go do something. And sometimes I feel like I miss out on some opportunities or I end up being too tired to go out and do the fun stuff. So I call it my Cinderella complex, not to say Cinderella's bad or anything, but just like she had the stepmother trying to get her to do all her work so she would miss the ball. And so I often think, oh, I'm sort of somewhat conditioned in a performance, do instead of being. That's my biggest thing is just be, Anne. Just be. Like you can be still, you can go have fun and not have to feel like you have to accomplish something or achieve something. So for me, that's a big struggle.
Mm. And you've reminded me of it's a client that I used to work with. She lives on Anglesey, which is a small island just off the north coast of Wales. And from her house, she can see Snowdonia and Snowdon, the biggest mountain in Wales. So beautiful views. And one of the things that I really admire about her is that she says when she's at home, if the weather is good, she just goes out. Whether she's got housework or work on her laptop or whatever it is, she leaves it and she just goes out.
I need to learn from her. Um, and my husband, Kevin, he's like super driven, super achiever, type A, always going. And um, sometimes I feel like I can't keep up with him. Not that I'm supposed to, but at the same time, like both of us having the same energy level to go out and do something when one of us is really tired, or
Yeah,
um, the other thing, yeah, and or you want to get all your to-dos done so that you can relax because if you don't, you're going to be thinking about them
yeah,
and preoccupied and not present.
yeah. So I'm gonna. This is at the risk of putting us into a bit of a downer now, but it's popped into my head, and I've learned that in Values Jam, it's best if you just share what comes to your mind. So another guy that I worked with, a French guy called Didier, um, he moved back to France with his wife, and then I got a message from him one day telling me that she had died.
Mm.
And in a phone call, he explained that he was so grateful to have spent so many years with her because they loved each other so much. But he then said his one regret was that they had always planned all the things they would do when they had time. And so for me, that is another lesson around enjoyment to grab it now and enjoy the moment rather than, and that's not to say that you can't plan some things and put some things into the future, but I guess that it's about not being too extreme with that because you never know how long you've got if that's not too pessimistic.
No, they say tomorrow's never promised, so live for today. And I think balance is important. Like your life work balance. We're all so driven to achieve and get done our things we do. Um, but I think back to like the slower time periods back, 50 years ago, my grandmother's generation, where there was less out there to do. there's less things in the world, and it was a more close-knit family and community environment and a simpler life back then. And their enjoyment might not have been traveling across the world to a trip for somewhere to go look at an ocean somewhere, but like a community picnic where the kids are running around and the men are sitting around playing cards and the women are talking about, like there's joy and happiness and enjoyment in that, the simple stuff, and they did it all the time. Whereas now, like, how often do we get together with our families or make the effort? Like they did that like every Sunday or whatever, and now like that's such a effort. It takes a lot of effort.
Yeah,
We can easily be distracted.
yeah. And again, we're coming back to this theme. You talked about us being busy again, and kind of closing out that space when you might otherwise be enjoying yourself. You also said, so I need to bring this up because you said life work balance. Very few people use it that way round. And I remember seeing work life balance some time ago. And I remember, I think it was probably on LinkedIn, I remember responding saying, a first step to achieving a better sense of balance would be to use the word the other way around. Because, it's work life balance. No, it's life work. So
True.
have you always used it that way?
Like,
Because I don't know that I've heard anybody else use it.
I don't. Oh, I don't know. Maybe that's something over here in the States. I don't know. Like, I'm going to have to change that to life work. And maybe I'll just leave the work part out.
Just like,
um, just life.
yeah,
But I think too, like for me and Kevin, like putting the phones down, the electronics, and just disconnecting from the potential busyness that we can find ourselves going down rabbit holes of wasted time. And, you know, we all struggle with that. I mean, we all struggle to, most of us anyway, to put down the electronics and go out into the world and do something like without it. That's really hard. They always have to be in our back pocket.
yeah. And actually, you've just reminded me that I didn't answer the second part to your question earlier. When you asked me about enjoyment, and you said, "Are there times when you find that a challenge?" And my answer is not very often, actually, because for my core values, I have a short descriptor of what each one means to me. And my descriptor for enjoyment is reminding myself how lucky I am to be doing whatever I'm doing. So whether that's doing the garden, or whether that's writing a proposal and it's quite late at night and you're tired, or whether it's being with your grandchildren, those are all just part of your life, and you're very lucky to have all of those things. So that's how I kind of
Mhm.
deal with it. Um, so I'm curious now to know about. So you've talked about. I'm really kind of in awe of you guys putting your phones away for 3 days. It's like that is an achievement. I'm not sure how. Maybe that's something I should give some thought to. So how much of a challenge is it for you to save space for enjoyment?
It's a struggle because I am a doer versus I'm better at doing than being. And I think part of it is my personality and my temperament. I have a servant heart, so I'm always wanting to do for others. But that also means I need to do for myself. And that's the part that always kind of is last on the list. So for me, even without working, I'm busy. So finding that quiet moment or taking an hour and just sitting and reading a good book and not worrying about the dishes in the sink, or calling up a friend and getting a couple girlfriends together for dinner, or just doing something. Yeah, it's a struggle. It's easy to go keep yourself busy and occupied and distracted.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I would add to that is that So I'm just thinking back to holiday again. You know, some people, I'm wonder what you're like when you're on vacation, but some people are like scheduling everything so that you make sure you get everything done while you're there. And I do a bit of that, but I also like to put in some time when there's nothing planned. And if there's something that presents itself as an opportunity, then you just go and do it. Or you do something when you don't know what's going to happen. So we walked for 25 minutes from one beach to another beach. Didn't know what it was going to be like, didn't know the way. We just went and did it. And doing those things, I really enjoy the unknown. Um, yeah, so not sure where we're going with that, but there is definitely something about enjoyment not having to be planned, known, scheduled, um, only allowed when you finished your jobs.
Right, I know. Yeah, I think like for like those bigger trip kind of things, it's hard because like you want to cram in a lot of things because you don't want to miss anything that everyone thinks you need to do. But at the same time, like I know we have a vacation coming up and it's very low key, and I'm just looking forward to like sitting by the pool with a book and a cup of coffee and just being very leisurely. And if I take a nap, I need a nap, you know, because um, we've just we go at warp speed all the time, and sometimes I need a vacation just to chill out and hang by the on the dock at a lake and go boating, or don't really know what's going to come about in the day, but I know where I'm at and with who, but I just don't know exactly every little minute. But then other times where it's like if I'm going somewhere like that I know I'm never going to go back to, I might want to do an excursion or experience something from that culture or country that maybe um, I would like to experience.
Well, I know that you're a person of faith, and so I'm going to tell you a story that I hope you'll enjoy. This is funny as well because Didier, the French guy that I mentioned earlier, I went to stay with him in the south of France for a few days one summer. And one morning he said, "We haven't got anything planned today, but there is a beautiful abbey near here, about 40 minutes drive. Would you like to go and see the abbey?" Now, I'm not a religious person, but I do enjoy religious places. I don't know what it is, but I just feel something different.
Mhm.
And I like architecture and history, and so it was like, yeah, let's go. So we went to this place, and are you familiar with Gregorian chant music?
Love Gregorian chant.
Okay, so
I love it.
imagine this. There's Didier and I were exploring around this abbey, and then all of a sudden we just hear this single male voice singing Gregorian chant music. And there's this elderly guy walking down the center of the main area of the abbey. And so I said to Didier, "You got to find out what's going on here. This sounds amazing, but what's the score?" So he went and talked to the guy. My French wasn't good enough to be able to join in, and then the two of them are together talking, and then the singer stood in the middle of the space and
Mm.
sang a note and stopped. And then he moved to the side of the and stood right with his back to the wall and sang the note and stopped, but the note didn't stop. You could hear it. And
Mm.
so when Didier came back, he explained that the man had told him about how this abbey had been designed for the acoustics, and that's how he was demonstrating it. And he said, and the guy's a professional singer. He sings with his son. Uh, and so it was like, wow, that was amazing. And on the way out, there was a CD there of this guy with his son on the front. So Didier bought a copy, went and got him to sign it. And on the way back in the car, we were just thinking about what had just happened and how we had not planned that. We had just allowed the space. and something wonderful had occurred. So there's,
Something magical.
yeah, amazing. And so I was, that came to mind because you started to talk about how you don't have to fill stuff up again. You can leave space for those things to happen. Sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. And you can, what's for sure is if you fill the space, there is no space for things like that to happen.
I think about the opportunities we miss or the chances to experience something that you just explained. It's such a powerful experience that you can't hardly even put into words that you would not have experienced if you had planned your whole day out.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
And those things stick with you, I think, longer
For sure.
than, yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that, but you're right. Because if, let's say it had been, oh, well, let's plan to go and see this historic landmark. Yes, I'm here. I've taken a photo. I've done that. Go home. There's less of a kind of personal, emotional connection. Whereas when something happens that you weren't expecting and draws you in, then suddenly it becomes a much stronger memory.
Absolutely. I have to share a musical story with you that happened when Kevin and I went to the Holy Land back in 2019. We were on a pilgrimage with a group of our church family. And we were in an area where the shepherds were when Jesus was going to be born. So the shepherds that were coming to see him. And we were in this church, and our guide said, I'd like you all to go in a big circle around the altar, and we're going to sing a song. And and I'm going to record it for you because the acoustics in here are beautiful. And we started singing one of a Christmas song. I don't remember exactly what it was off the top of my head, but I was crying through the whole song because it was so moving.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite moments of the whole Holy Land trip. And I saw so many awesome things that were scheduled,
Yeah.
but this one thing that happened, and like Kevin and I weren't near each other, we were across from each other, and he saw me crying, and he comes over, he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "That was the most beautiful thing I've heard in like ages." And it was just us from church singing, and like the acoustics in this church were just astounding, and it just made us sound great. But those are the moments, that the unexpected moments, I think, bring a higher level of enjoyment
Yeah.
for sure.
And I think what you've just said there is can't be improved on. So I'm going to bring this values jam to a close for us, but we do have one final question to answer, and that is, uh, what are you encouraged to do differently about enjoyment as a result of our conversation today?
Hmm. I think when we hang up, I'm going to turn my devices off and go outside for a little bit.
Are you?
It's nice here and enjoy some weather. Enjoying the nice weather because it's been so hot here. And I think, you know what, I'm going to turn my iPad off when we hang up, and I'm just going to go outside and take a little stroll around the neighborhood. But no, I think in general though, I think less device time for sure, and scheduling some, like blocking a period of time in my day, whether it's first thing in the morning or in the evening, to like not worry about my Cinderella complex and do, but like put in my to-do list a break, to just have a little bit more downtime to do whatever.
And
How about you?
yeah, so it's very similar. So it was this thing about blocking time for nothing, or whatever it's going to be, but you don't know what it's going to be yet. And whether that's, I'm just thinking this through now because I can do that on my calendar, and I'm a bit of a slave to my calendar. So it's like if it's on the calendar, I do it, and if it's not on the calendar, maybe it has to wait. So to put in time when it's not known what you're going to do. But the bit that I'm thinking that I'm going to add to that is something around activity associated with your core values. So what's important to you, um, so that you're kind of not forced, but encouraged, guided to actually pay attention to them more than you would have done if you just filled up your calendar. So that's the first
Mhm.
bit. And then the second bit, personally, to just allow that same principle where I tend to be quite organized. And so not to feel that you have to organize every minute, and to actually take the reverse view where you see the value of not organizing time to allow that space for experiences like the Abbey and that song experience that you shared. Um, and I love the fact that yours is so immediate that I can see you now when we finish this call, you're closing stuff down,
Like,
you're going out, and you're breathing
I
in.
have to just share one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have to share one thing. My aunt that I was talking about, since we live so far away, when she comes to visit, she's here for 2 weeks, and we like people will say, "Oh, what are you going to do with your aunt while she's here?" I'm like, "We're just." I don't know if you've heard the term frittering. Um, in my area, people think of a fritter as like something you eat, like an apple fritter. It's like dough
Yeah.
with apples. But I use it as a verb, and it's the definition of frittering is the art of doing nothing.
Okay.
And so we just leave our days open to see where they go. A lot of times it involves a coffee shop, but other times it's, we just drive around and see what we run into. But yeah, everybody should go fritter some more.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because in English, this might not be English generally, but in my experience, frittering has a connotation of waste. So you would say that somebody has been frittering their life away, um,
Wasting time. Yeah.
wasting time. But in your context, it's actually taking advantage of that time in the way that we've been describing in this conversation, right? So it's weird how one word can mean almost the opposite of the same thing.
Yeah.
So, Anne, thank you. I can't resist to say that I've thoroughly enjoyed our values jam about enjoyment. So, thank you for sparing some time.
And likewise, and it's always enjoying for me to see your beautiful smile.
Thank you, Anne. You take care. Bye.
Okay, bye.